This growth is subject to external variables and, of course, some of them inherent to growth. The following leaders of the exporting industry will address challenges such as workforce, processing capacity, logistics in the destinations, and opening new markets. The panel will begin with a presentation by Gonzalo Salinas, fruits and vegetables analyst of fruit and agribusiness research of Rabo. Gonzalo will analyze the macro trends in the cherry industry, and then we'll call up to the stage Ms. Orieta Ramirez, General Manager of Cruzan, Andres Fuensalida, General Manager of Corporate Fruit, Christian Tagle, Commercial Manager at Garces Fruit, and the Chairman of the SOX Cherry Committee, and finally Claudio Vial, General Manager of Renko Cherries. The moderator of this great panel will be Mr. Ivan Manambio, Chairman of SOX. Now, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Gonzalo Salinas for his presentation. Thank you once again to the Cherry Committee for the invitation. Before we start, I'd like to congratulate. I've been following this topic and industry for 10 to 15 years now, and I think that the results of this last season, which I will address, are very positive. And once again, congratulations to everyone. I'm Gonzalo Salinas. I'm a member of Rebel Research, part of market research area for Chile and Peru, with more than 130 researchers providing information to our clients and to the industry. I would like to start with changes. First, we have to set the context of everything that we have gone through in the last 3 years, and I think that the key word here is uncertainty. We're still coming back to normality, and there are different signals that we are underway. However, there are still some miles to go. Everything that went on, like the trade wars between China and the United States before the pandemic, and also now the Russian and Ukraine war in Europe, has affected the fresh fruit sector and has brought about global significant challenges. Also, the pandemic, the changes in supply and demand, and changes in consumption patterns. We thought our supply chains were not so vulnerable, but this really showed that they were. And inflation. We can see now at least how in the US market they have reached maximum levels in 2021, and now there is a trend towards recovery, and the components of both supply and demand play an equal role. And in Europe as well, we can see how the growth of real values have touched a peak in 2021, and now we start to see a recovery in the first semesters of 2023. This goes hand in hand with another factor that is quite significant and that the industry is very much related to, which is logistics. There was a reliability index of the sea transportation system. There was a 75% trust index that has fallen in 2021, 2022. We can see that now it starts to pick up again. There is a small drop here and a recovery in 2022, as you can see. And in December and January is where we saw these small drops again to its lowest point, and also in previous periods. We can see this also reflected in the overall average delays and how they have gone up in 2021 and 2022, and in January and December with the most difficult times in January 2022. We see how this is also changing. We're still above the levels during the pandemic, and we can say that there is a recovery. Now, what about cherries? We can see that a number of vessels reached a peak according to our statistics, and these the lower parts of the graph in 2016 and 17 has to do when the first express vessels were began operating, and here the transit times in blue. This opens also space for improvement. As we can see, the last 5 seasons, the average days for sea transportation improved by 6% from in 2022-2023, but there's still room for improvement when we saw 22 days in the 2021 season. We've heard a lot so far. There are some concrete actions in the industry, such as communication, partnerships. We can see that we went from transit times of 30 days to 10 days less in terms of transportation. Also, there is less concentration in the southern part of China. You can see north, the center, south, and part of the hinterland. You can see that the central part, Shanghai and Ningbo, had 1/3 of the offer, and something that in the last 4 seasons we hadn't seen. It was quite stable, the southern part receiving 80% of the fruit. This also leads to better distribution and better ways of reaching other markets, especially the north part and the hinterland of the country that do not consume so much cherries yet. In the previous panel, it was mentioned that there are signals that at least the global rates for reefer containers are becoming more dynamic. This global index has seen a 4% drop, and in the first semester of 2023, it fell by 11%. That's for reefer containers. We hope to see same figures as we saw for dry containers. However, in 2023 and for 2024, there are some signals that the rates could continue to decrease in terms of reefer containers, in terms of plugs and fleet in 2023 and 2024, according to our logistics department in Rabobank. Estimates for 2023 and 2024 show an increase in capacity. Another important point is that it's something that was very much mentioned by clients, was the cost of fertilizers. Once again, we have numbers that went back to levels before the Russian war. We still have a lot to recover, keeping in mind the spikes that we saw during the pandemic. Now, everything that we have seen, the depth and the duration of recessions and crises, this is something that we haven't overcome yet. This is still undergoing, and we can see how, depending on the end markets, I will talk about the United States and Europe first, there are different realities. In Europe, there is an ongoing war, and this could alter any possibility for projections in the short term. Also, there are complex realities like, for instance, the dependence on energy in the Eurozone and the United States. And also, we can see that despite high inflation rates, unemployment it's still very low in Europe and the United States. In China, we see macro trends. There are some issues. Reactivation, post-COVID reactivation is a reality now for the cherry sector. There are some problems like populations decrease, and but I would like to talk about some future projections for the industry. Our main market has reached its population peak. So what does the future has in store for us? Well, at least for the next 10 years, the levels will remain the same. However, we should start looking to the mid and long term to see how this will generate many other changes in terms of global economic growth. China in 23 and 24 shows positive figures. They have been updated upwards by the OECD. And when we talk about consumers, we notice that in other markets outside of China, there is a search for value. In the case of the United States, according to the monthly variation in 2022, in terms of visits and transactions in retail stores in the United States, we see that there are some negative fluctuation in the second semester of 2022. However, other stores show a trend that is under the inflation, but we can see a turn upwards. The same thing as for in-store spending. We see that discount stores and membership stores have shown a difference. People are buying more in the American market, and we have to include other factors such as the increase of uh, spend spending power in 2022 and 2023 with the economic aids during the pandemic. Also, other premium and Whole Foods markets show positive figures, at least for in-store spending. I will now talk about the European market.
In here, you have numerous factors, and I will quote Robert Visage from the Netherlands. I should say that our crystal ball is kind of blurry because there are many indexes and factors that contradict each other. This is not like crisis we had seen before, and we see some low-cost fruits like apples, or the same happens with bananas, and they show in the case particularly of apples that there is a decrease in consumption, considering that we are in a crisis period, and we had seen this going the other way around towards more economical alternatives. But we see also some other fruits that are higher in value, including strawberries and blueberries, that increase the consumption in the German retail. We see also other trends, the effect of citrus fruits that were highly consumed during the pandemic and in 2022 had an adjustment. This is all very dynamic in terms of trends that occur. And in here we can see also by observing the value, as I commented before, we have the case of blueberries that continued to go up despite their price. So we're trying to find out what happens in this connection. The same in the case of bananas. They keep their value, their price as compared to the general volume in transactions within the German market. And they show different trends. And this is a message that is linked to the one I conveyed at the beginning of the presentation. So we are in this transition back to normality. And this is one of the conclusions. This is the panoramics for 2021. And this is going to be, this year is going to be slower considering the inflation rate in the United States. And these changes are putting pressure in the behaviors of customers in the different um, markets, and we still have the warlike events and the other problems prevailing. So, unfortunately, and taking into account all the factors we have now, it's not possible to offer a better scenario. In Chile, it happens the same. We have the structural markets in the long and mid term, and I kept this point for the conclusion because the Chilean cherries, according to what we experienced last season, I could say that they are going into a new cycle for their exports history. Thank you very much once again for this invitation.